Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. And welcome to today's webinar, The Risk of Assuming You Know Your Suppliers. My name's Amy. I'm a member of the marketing team at Perry Johnson Registrars Food Safety, Inc., and I'll be facilitating today's webinar and offering technical support to our speakers. Today, we're very excited to be welcoming Greg Somerville as our guest for the presentation, and I'll be introducing him to you all a little later on in the broadcast. Before we get started, I just need to go over a few housekeeping notes. To ensure audio quality, all of our attendees are on mute today. However, we do absolutely want to take any questions you might have. So to ask a question, just go ahead and type it into the questions tab of the GoToWebinar control panel and click send. We will answer as many of these as we have time for at the end of the prepared slides. The two questions we get most often are usually, where can I get the slides? Or will a recording be available? And the answer to both questions is yes. The slides will be available from the PJRFSI website, and the recording will be posted to the PJRFSI YouTube channel for you to review or to share with someone who maybe couldn't attend the broadcast. All right, so just moving right along. This will show you a rough estimate of what it'll look like on your screen if you open the question tab there. You can type your question in and then click send, and we will get those questions and answer as many as we can at the end. Just to get us started today, before I introduce our first speaker, we do have a quick polling question. And this is just to help us figure out, who's in the audience, how can we better tailor the presentation to all of you? So the first question is your organization currently certified to a GFSI standard? So just choose whichever response is best suited to your status. All responses are anonymous, so feel free to vote however you please. And as I said, this will just help us, better know who's in the audience so that we can give you the most effective presentation possible. To those of you who might be joining a few minutes late, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can go ahead and type them right into the questions tab. And as I said before, we'll answer as many of those as possible at the end of the slides. All right, we've got about 63% participation in that poll, so thank you so much for those responses. And here's how you all voted. So it looks like quite a few of you are already certified, which is always great to see. And moving right along, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first speaker today. That's Paul Demarin. He is our Senior Vice President of Food Safety and Supply Chain at PJRFSI. Paul joined us back in January of this year and has over 35 years of experience in the hospitality, service, and retail agri-food sectors. Before he came to PJRFSI, Paul worked for 15 years in the certification industry with clients in every sector, from food safety and supply chain to brand protection and quality. Paul has worked for many years in management system certification as well, and before that, Paul was a professional chef and a consultant for over 20 years in major hotel chains, restaurants, private golf courses, and food service organizations. So Paul, without further ado, I'm going to hand things over to you, and you can take it away whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Amy. Very appreciated, and welcome everyone to our webinar today. We're really looking forward to this one and appreciate your time. As Amy mentioned, my name is Paul, and I'm the SVP here for PJRFSI. We have a lot to unpack today, and I'm going to start with a very short overview of our company for you. And then I have the pleasure of welcoming back a colleague of mine who I've known for many, many years, Greg Somerville. And Greg is going to be discussing the risks of assuming that you know your suppliers. So thank you very much, Greg, and we appreciate you being here. So let's just kind of jump right in. We were founded back in '94 as Perry Johnson Registrars. That's our management system side of the business. Really, we've been at the forefront of certification and registration from the very beginning to countless international standards. We achieved multiple accreditations over the year as well, with ANAB being in 1995, and then UCAS was in 1999. During that time and for the last 20 years, we've been expanding globally all around the world. We started in '99 with Japan and Brazil, and then we continued in the 2000s with Germany, Portugal, Spain, Italy, etc. Also in 1999, actually, PJLA, which is our laboratory accreditation business, was founded. In 2005, PJNA, which is Perry Johnson and Associates, that's a healthcare technology company. We do things like virtual scribing services, telemedicine, transcription. 2012, if we fast forward, that's when PJRFSI was born. We had countless companies in the industry who were looking for food safety and quality certification. We're headquartered in Troy, Michigan. Excuse me. We're a global company. We have offices in about 20 countries around the world. We have auditors in about 450 auditors around the world, to probably about 30 different programs that we support in the food space. We do really everything from, a basic GMP or HACCP audit to GFSI certification, gluten-free to cannabis, and we also do a lot of work with the social responsibility and ethical sourcing standards as well. So over the last 8 years, we've really partnered and worked with organizations in pretty much every sector in the industry. We've worked with companies, everyone from processors and retailers to farms, importers, exporters, DCs, just to name a few. And we generally work with these organizations to promote their food safety, manage the risk within their supply chain, and focus on quality and brand protection as well. So when we work with our organizations, we do believe that there's a difference between customer focus and customer service. And part of our job is to uphold the standards of professionalism and technical competence throughout the life cycle of the audit process. We work very hard with our clients across a number of different schemes. Right now, the certification industry is still deemed as an essential service because really it's based on the results of tests and inspections. But audits, gives confidence to not only you and your organizations, but us as consumers, that the organization's products are being thoroughly evaluated against national and international standards. But as we know, it's certainly not business today. It seems in some cases it's actually getting worse. But at the end of the day, we're here to continue to provide a high quality service to our clients while trying to reduce the impacts of COVID. And in today's market, that's even more critical. Today, we're all dealing with constantly changing dynamic organizations and places. Consumer expectations are changing, trends are shifting, there's more recalls that are coming and popping up everywhere. It's a real challenge for every organization. Size and scope really doesn't seem to matter. We have our services in 4 key areas: auditing and certification to third-party standards like GFSI and ISO. We do second party, which is unaccredited standards, could be food safety, quality, a number of different standards, but these are standards that we as a certification body own, like GMP or GDP, HACCP. And then we work with our customers on their specific audit programs that they may have. A good example of that is McDonald's in the SQMS program, where they have a standard that they've written, they own it, but they have certification bodies conduct audits to it. So moving right along here, this is, if you recall, I mentioned that there was about 30 different programs that we support across first, second, and third party assessments. We do a lot of work with various retailers that are out there in the Americas. All of our third party programs are really based on the standards that we audit to and that we're accredited under ISO 17065 or 17021, which are the standards that govern the CVs. And we're also recognized by government to perform various inspections that you may require, such as the FSMA or the Food Safety Modernization Act, Foreign Supplier Verification Program, as well as the Voluntary Qualified Importer Program, or VQIP. And then if we take a look on the management system side of the house, I'm sorry, I didn't have that slide. This is our accreditation slide. So we work with accreditation bodies and scheme owners all around the world. This, again, as I mentioned, gives assurance that our family of companies operate under the rules of accreditation. That helps to maintain our work as well. In many occasions throughout the year, we partner with these organizations to deliver webinars similar to this so that we provide our customers with the up-to-date information that they need to be able to manage the risk in their business. So typically where we as a CB come and audit you, the accreditation bodies come and audit us. And that is essentially it for me that I want to talk about. I want to give as much time to Greg here today. Just, remember that we're still very much, I think, at the beginning of the virus in many ways. They're talking about different things that are going to be available to us in the near future. So hopefully that will come soon. But really, we just need to make sure that we continue to protect all of our companies and our customers and our suppliers and our families. It's a time of great change, and we look forward to being a part of that in the future for you. So if you have any questions at all, we're here. And at that point, Amy, I'll say thank you, and I'll pass it back to you.
Great, thanks so much, Paul. Moving right along, just before we introduce our main speaker of the day, I do have another polling question for all of you, and that question is, what are the minimum requirements you have on your suppliers for quality, safety, or supply chain? And there's 5 options for you to choose from. Just choose whatever suits you best. Your answers are anonymous, so feel free to answer however you please. And as soon as we get some good participation in here, I will move right along to introducing Greg. And once again, a reminder for anyone who came in late before we get into the main body of our presentation. If you have any questions, or maybe if there's something that's mentioned that you're unsure about, or if there's something that isn't mentioned that you're curious regarding, go ahead and type any relevant questions into the questions tab, and we will answer as many of those as possible once we conclude the slides today. All right, we're having some great participation in the poll, so thank you all for your responses. This is how you all voted, so once again, thank you for your participation. It really does help us understand who all is in the audience and shape the presentation to the audience. All right, so at this time, I'd like to introduce our main speaker. That's Greg Somerville from GSD. Greg has worked for over 18 years in the global urban spice supply chain, specializing in supply integrity, working with origin suppliers, ensuring food safety, regulatory compliance, and product integrity. He started his own consultancy, Global Supplier Verification, in 2017, and works with Frontier Co-op alongside their purchasing department with origin suppliers, developing supply chains, leveraging technology for greater efficiencies, carrying out risk assessments, supplier audits, identifying non-conformance root causes, implementing key quality programs, working on strategic projects, horizon scanning, and supporting new vendor origin approvals. Greg is a qualified FSPCA lead instructor for FSVP and PC for Human Foods, and holds a level 4 HACCP certification for food manufacturing from Campton BRI. Over the years, Greg has been a Safe Quality Food, or SQF, consultant for the high-risk category, has completed the lead auditor training for BRC third-party audits, and has worked within several groups for GFSI and their schemes. Presently, Greg is on the board of directors for the American Spice Trade Association and has worked and taken leading roles on a number of the committees within the association. So Greg, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today.
Thank you, Amy. That makes me sound like I should be crazy busy every day with all those tasks that I do.
It is a pretty lengthy introduction.
Yeah. Right, let me see if this is working. Okay, so we're here today. Everyone is no doubt aware that COVID is sweeping the globe. I do live in the Cayman Islands. We are actually COVID-free down here, so local life is normal with no social distancing and no masks required. Anyone can come down. They've just started a work permit deal, so if you can work remotely, you can come down here. There's a 2-week quarantine for coming in, so life has really changed. In my area of work, I travel for 60% of the time, and it's really changed. I've not traveled since March, and this is the longest I've ever been at home for 18 years, which is good and bad, I guess. I have got used to it now, but it is I am missing those plain meals, if you can imagine it. So today I just would like to go through, I am a consultant. I do have my own business, Global Supplier Verification, but I do work full-time for Frontier Co-op. Frontier Co-op are based up in Iowa. They're a co-op and they operate under 3 brands, or Acacia, which is a personal care, Frontier Co-op, and Simply Organic, which hopefully you've seen in your local store. We also do a number of private label brands as well out in the supermarkets. The mission is to nourish people and planet and always be fair, and to inspire wellness in the communities we serve. So we work closely with co-ops and help develop suppliers at origin to meet our requirements. It's a great business, and it really helps farm gate level smallholders at origins. I have worked for 18 years in herbs, spices, and botanicals. Botanicals mainly with Frontier over the past 3.5 years, but herbs and spices my entire career in food safety auditing. And what our number one risk is when we see this is that there's a serious supply chain failure that affects our brand's reputation, which is something that no brand wants to fall to. So therefore, the supplier verification and origin development is key in making sure that this is a reduced risk, but obviously never a risk that can totally diminish. So today I'm going to set the scene. COVID, what's happening out there, supply chain challenges, because there's more happening in 2020, as I'm sure everyone is aware, than just COVID. There's a bunch more challenges out of origins. What you should be doing, what Frontier Co-op does differently, and what the future could look like. So what's happening out there? COVID-19. I've spoken a bit about it, and the food chain's been really affected. It's globally efficient, but it's not agile out there. So everyone's been pressurizing these suppliers to get more and more efficient, reducing risks, making sure everything comes in just on time, lean manufacturing on time in full. It arrives as we need to use it, no stocks, mixed containers, etc., in many cases. And this has sort of really caused a problem now because there's very limited stock around, and getting suppliers to then move into greater efficiencies, greater volumes through the system, it has been difficult. There has also been disruptions in the supply chain with absenteeism because of sickness or quarantine. If you get a positive test, you stay away. Every state in the US has got different requirements for that. Social distancing has really been a challenge, especially we read articles about the meat industry. So it's not just the industry I work in, but it's all industries. Some of our suppliers do hand sorting out in Europe. And what they're happening is there used to be 4 people around a table. Now there's only 2 people around a table. They're both wearing masks. So suddenly 50% of your hand sorting, and they can't put any more tables in the room. So it's really affecting efficiency of that hand sorting, which then slows down supply chains, slows down shippings, and it's just got this ripple effect through the supply chain. Borders are closed. I spoke to some colleagues in India, one of our factories over there. They're actually having problems getting product across state lines as well. So not only are you thinking about country to country, you've then got state to state, county to county, even city to city. One of my colleagues in India, his neighborhood got shut down. So if your plant or your facility is in a neighborhood, it gets shut down, nothing can move out of that. Your employees can't come in, there's challenges around. And then with the lowering of air transport, everyone knows the airlines are in trouble. The air freight that maybe used to be as a backup to supplement your volumes coming in and arrive quicker from overseas, is suddenly reduced again, and everyone's battling and everyone's fighting for those spaces on planes, which are very, very, very limited. Workers also that might have been seasonal, whether in India coming from the north down the south or south up to the north to harvest, even from Mexico into the southern states of the US, are being stopped and not coming because they feel their safety. If they are coming, there's concern, you go back to the social distancing in the fields. And what we found is that many items are now single sourced. Retailers and consumers, they're very knowledgeable about food these days, and so they very much want to have like Telecherry black pepper, Spanish saffron. So again, when you've got maybe 5 origins, but you've reduced your need, or you put your label down to 1, again, there's another challenge there to keep up with demand. And just it's been a huge change of market, as I touched on earlier. Grocery shopping's gone up 72%, and food service has been reduced 27%. So the people in the restaurant industries are really suffering, as we hear on the news all the time. And even in Cayman, in grocery in Cayman, now everything gets shipped in here. So as you can see on the left-hand side, the salad, the pre-prepared salads in the plastic boxes, there was none there when I went in. In my industry, on the herbs and spices on the right-hand side, in the top pictures actually from some friends in the US, and you can see the spice racks are bare. And then on the right hand side at the bottom is again my local supermarket here, where they're actually taking the smaller McCormick and putting them twice up to make it look like they've got the big McCormick retail packs there, but they've only got the 2 small ones. And we've got signs around our supermarket saying shipping delays, products currently out of stock. We've got signs that just went up last week, limiting certain purchases to a set number, and it's not toilet roll at all at the moment as it was in the past. Actually, dog food, you can only take 2 cans of dog food, or you can only take 2 cans of this or that, and there are these various signs around the shelves. So it affects everything, specifically around here, because as I said, everything is shipped into Cayman. And there are other crises going on which might not have made the news as much because COVID plus the US election on this side of the world has taken over the news feed. But there's climate change crises happening. The monsoon in India, there's been landslides in Vietnam. In the US, you've had fires, an amazing amount of fires in California, Oregon, all through that region. In Iowa, where Frontier is located, we have the derecho, which is an inland hurricane. First one our CEO has seen in his 60 years up there, and that came through with half an hour warning. Not a tornado, a derecho. It's a 200-mile hurricane, inland hurricane that comes through. Down here in the Caribbean, we've had a record year. We're nearly through the Greek alphabet now, and they're extending hurricane season, which usually finishes anytime now. They think it might go through to January. In Peru, we had the ammonium nitrate explosion at the port that took out half the port and multiple buildings around there. And something that's really pertinent to our industry is the plague of locusts that have gone across a huge swath of land, East Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and the Indian subcontinent. So much so that in some places they've had fire engines actually spraying pesticides out of their hoses trying to deal with the locusts. And they've been that bad. So what's happening is that countries are solving their own problems, which you'd expect at this point. They're trying to make sure their own country folk are looked after. India and Vietnam delayed or stopped rice exports. There's plenty of examples out there that are happening. At the moment, we found that consumer packaged goods companies, they're stocking up on raw materials versus taking cash and keeping cash in the bank. People are just buying as much raw material if they can get it and when they can get it, which is then putting stress on the food supply chain and putting stress on a number of other areas, including packaging, pallets. And we go back to what I was talking about earlier, transport, air transport, even shipping. There's just, the retail sector is getting crazy busy, and they just can't keep stock on the shelves of many cases. Down again, just an example down to Cayman is that they're prioritizing food shipments. So everything else that people are expecting with Christmas coming up, with Amazon packages, is all being held up for 2, 3, 4 weeks in the US because food shipments are being prioritized, and yet still they can't keep the supermarket shelves full. So what's happening out there in the facilities, in the businesses? What are people dealing with actually out there? So we've got, in the actual facilities, we've got higher sanitation requirements. There's possibly less oversight as GFSI audits are maybe remote, maybe even they've been given extensions. Maybe some facilities have decided to forego it because they don't want a third-party auditor or somebody else in their factory just because of the risk of it coming from another state, coming specifically in India or Sri Lanka, Turkey, places where I visit. There's also bad industry players which are now coming to the forefront. The products that might not necessarily have sold it into developed countries and maybe have been sold into undeveloped countries and maybe a gray market or in a very low quality market. As products get short, people are selling it into developed markets. They're selling it into other markets where not necessarily it was before. So there is this, sometimes the bad industry might not be a bad industry player in their market, but they might be trying to upsell into different markets. And then fraud is becoming much more technical. I'll go into fraud a bit later because in herb spices, it's, herbs and spices always come up in the fraud piece, but they're becoming more technical. There's more money to be made now. Commodity prices are rising. Therefore, if they can extend their product by 20, 30, 40%, they're getting 20, 30, 40% more of even a bigger commodity price. There's labeling, but in the botanical industry, there's a number of companies putting, we cure COVID, we can stop COVID, this stops you getting COVID, and you might see these FDA notifications coming out saying, telling with branded names on them, saying, they're being warned for unsubstantiated claims on the labeling. And the FDA has actually allowed some minor ingredient swaps in the products, which again lead to benefits for food manufacturers, but it's only got to be minor. You've got to be worried about allergens, all these pieces that come together with making a blend. Employees, that, you know, some employees are very worried. High-risk employees don't want to come to work. People are working from home. Obviously, operational in the facility or labs or distribution centers, people have got to come to work. And then you come down to social distancing. You come down to mask wearing. If it's a dusty facility, if it's a hard job, if you're sweating, a mask doesn't help at all. So maybe it leads to social distancing instead of mask wearing, which again affects your efficiency. And then I've mentioned again about transport. What I didn't mention was that the courier shipments that we found is being affected as well. So the product samples we used to send from facilities in India, maybe from the south of India up to Mumbai lab, or to another lab, or even from a undeveloped country to a developed country for testing, couriers are having real problems even shipping packages that way. So we're having to navigate all that, as well as maybe change incoming procedures and policies on testing and sampling. People are still demanding the same quality of product, and with a higher demand, there's the same availability, but there's somehow out there products are getting stretched. So we go back to the fraudsters becoming more technical, and the watch out being, you know, be careful of what you buy, watch the pricing. Organics, which I'll come to in a little bit as well, is top of my priority list. We're about 80% organic, so it is a concern there as well. And the change of consumer channels has moved, as we saw earlier, with the rise back into groceries. People shop more for cooking at home than for going out in the restaurant, hotel, airline industry is really hurting, and all the food that used to go there. Now we're trying to swap supply chains, which has been more difficult than I think people believed, and moving into the grocery side. And we just talked about less travel and GFSIs with delayed certifications. So what's happening with existing suppliers? So we've got a higher uncertainty, we've got a higher demand, we've got a lower number of employees, and we've got lower amount of raw materials. Maybe the same amount of raw materials, but actually a lower amount to the demand that we need. So it's putting stresses on all your existing suppliers at the moment. And then you think, okay, maybe we'll go out and look for new suppliers. So the increased demand, you know, leads to maybe procurement. And I do work in the procurement department. I've always worked in procurement department as a quality function in there. It may lead to new suppliers because you've got higher demand. It may also lead to purchasing, pressurizing the quality, QA, QC, supply integrity, whichever department's doing your supplier approval, to speed up or change or shortcut these procedures because there is a huge demand out there. Somebody might offer you a container of X. It might take 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get a supplier approved with all the certificates, your organic certifier signing off on it, fair trade, whatever else certificates you want. By that time, somebody else might have bought it because you haven't put a deposit down. You don't know whether you're going to buy it. It's going to be based on quality, and some people are buying not based on qualities. So to ensure products get out the door, the entire business may pressurize those groups to approve suppliers that might not necessarily have become approved in previous times of stable demand and pre-COVID. So I know John Spink very well. We talked about food fraud a little later. So these are the areas of food fraud which he talks about in his presentation. I'm not going to go into each one, but I've got examples of each one of these. I've actually been made aware of each one of these, not in the business I work in, but definitely in the industry I work in. So food fraud is I believe going to rise during this time. And with the fraudsters getting more technical, how are you going to test for that product, especially when maybe procurement or operations is calling out and sales is calling out for more product to be made, to get out, to get sold, to get onto supermarket shelves. So there's this sort of predicament where there's pressures from all areas, pressures to approve a supplier, pressures to get more product in. It might not actually meet the specification. It might be a lower quality. Pressures to bottle it, pressures to pass it, pressures to push it out, pressures to get it on the supermarket shelves. The pressure comes from consumer to supermarket to facility to supplier and down. So there's some examples of food fraud. When you talk about food fraud, you probably heard herbs and spices are one of the always in the top 10. No matter what the product is, it's always in the top 10. A huge food safety issue we had, and a fraudulent issue we had many years ago, was the cumin, with the peanut in cumin. People were grinding peanuts and mixing it in with cumin. Now, no one had thought to test ground peanut in cumin because they thought it was an allergen. They didn't think anybody would be, I say, crazy enough to put ground peanut into cumin. We talk about it within the industry. We talk about how this started, where did it come from? Were people grinding shells and putting it in? But no one quite knows where that root, the exact root cause it. But now most people, or you should be testing your cumin for peanut to make sure it is pure cumin in the product. The other big one here is oregano, as you can see on the right-hand side, or oregano. People are mixing cistus, myrtle, olive leaves, and a multitude of other leaves into oregano. Now, I've actually been to a factory where they said to me, oh, they had layers of different leaves. They said, oh, we can mix it however you want it to whatever percentage. And I was like, no, we need 100% oregano. In the end, we never use that supplier, thankfully. But that's what's happening out in the market. You know, you're stretching the material. If oregano is $2 a pound and cistus is 20 cents a pound, you can mix it in and make some real money, and you're never going to find it. The smaller the leaf, the smaller the leaf, the less you're going to find it. If it gets to ground product, it's very difficult to find, and it leads to a multitude of issues. It's not only that you're going to you're not buying the 100% oregano. In the cumin issue, you're buying an allergen in the product. It could be a real bad food safety incident there. That's an allergen that can kill people. In the oregano, I've not heard of an allergen being mixed in, but it's definitely, when you think about where they mix it, they put it in their sterilizer for a kill step or a pathogen reduction step. At that point, the sterilizer is validated for 100% oregano. When you mix something else in with it, it's not necessarily going to heat, sterilize, reduce pathogens the same. The micro load of the product you're mixing in is not necessarily going to be the same. So there are many other issues, and not just the 100% product, which is the main issue, but there are other issues to look at throughout the supply chain. Oh, sorry, something's happening. Come on. Okay. Just recently, Chris Elliott in Europe, in Ireland, he actually just did a study on sage, and he found that sage was a popular herb to be heavily adulterated. Now, I have to say that in the UK, he did say, as you can see on the bottom there, that none of the UK's big supermarket chains were found to be fraudulent. It's these smaller shops out there, these market traders maybe, other small shops that are buying maybe something in a plastic bag and not necessarily going through the right supplier approvals or supply or testing on the products. An example here, a friend of mine bought a 2-pound bag of turmeric. I went over to their house. They said, look at this, we just bought this. It only cost whatever it cost, $5. And I said to them, you know, turmeric is a heavily adulterated item. There's no way they can grind a 2-pound pack of turmeric for $5. There's no way that that's pure turmeric. It's got something else in it. So we had this conversation. She's now thrown it away. So she's lost $5, whatever I said, $5 versus using it. But that's what's happening in these smaller shops. And that was in Cayman. That was a small shop in Cayman that does some Asian foods, and not one of the big retailers here under a big brand. Now we get onto organic sales. Now, with people staying at home, organic sales have increased even further. People are looking for organic for sort of a cleaner product, a healthier product. And organic sales before even COVID were growing at a fast pace. Fair enough, they were growing at a fast pace for organics, which is a smaller section already, but they were growing at a very strong pace up to that point. COVID, with more people eating at home, more people want COVID. So there's people cutting corners, you know, fraudulently putting non-organic into organic product, and the financial rewards definitely outweigh the criminal prosecution, if there is a criminal prosecution and you can prove it. And remember, it takes 3 years to certify an organic farm. So there's not like there's not a possibility that suddenly the organic demand has doubled overnight. That's just not possible. Even over a season, that's just not possible. So when demand outstrips supply, the people living on the edge doing fraudulent, they sort of step in. The financial reward gets better, and they start working on fraudulent products. Again, Professor Elliott from Queen's University, him and John Spink are two of the big speakers on food fraud. I'm not going to read these out, but I'll read the first one. The most vulnerable sector present is organic food production, where fraudulent activity was very difficult to detect scientifically. So the only way you can detect fraudulent is if you find a pesticide, and that might not even be fraudulent, that might be drift or something else. But if you've got a conventional product with 0 pesticides and you mix it, you fake the certificates down through the supply chain, it's very easy to do, and it is the product that's going into it. So organics does have a big opportunity, and as he says at the bottom, if the opportunity is there, someone is going to take it. Back to you, Amy.
Perfect, thanks so much. We do have another polling question here. We've got 2 in a row actually, so bear with me here. And that first one is regarding change in demand during COVID. What type of change have you seen in your consumed product demand during the pandemic? So as before, just choose whichever response suits you best. They are anonymous. And we have had some more people filter in, and let me see if we've got any early questions that we might be able to help with. All right, we do have a question here that was regarding one of the previous polling questions, but we will get to that at the end of the prepared slides, so bear with us, thank you. All right, and it looks like we're getting some great participation on this poll. So let's see how everyone voted. It's actually a surprisingly balanced response there. I'm personally quite surprised to see that it's so balanced. Let's see, we've got another one here. Roll right along. And that last polling question for the webinar is regarding whether your business purchases herbs, spices, or botanicals as ingredients or main products. And again, this is just to see who all is on the call, so we can help tailor the presentation. So go ahead and vote in this one. It's the last one, so we'll get right back to Greg's presentation once we've gotten some more participation. All right, we've got 80% reporting in. Get those last minute votes in, and I will move right along. All right, fantastic. And it looks like we've got a good mix of folks on the call. So thank you all for your participation, and I will hand it right back to Greg.
So I saw 67% don't buy herbs, spices, botanicals, but I think in the next half of this presentation, it will show the learnings from it and what we do can really be used in all types of suppliers. This slide was a little towards the end of the last slide that we finished with, that with the organics, that there is a huge high growth and there's high rewards, from financial rewards being the cost price, the per pound price of it, and there's low penalties for food fraud. If it doesn't harm somebody or doesn't hurt somebody, there's hardly any penalties at all, probably no jail time, and does a reward fit the crime, and there's low discoverability. That not everyone is checking every piece of traceability, and that's a whole nother subject when you talk about traceability. Blockchains out there, and how do we get back, and scanning QR codes on bottles to get back. But there is a low discoverability of fraud in that supply chain as well. Oh, sorry. So what do we do? What do we do in the herb and spice supply chain? So we do follow the ASTA recommendations, and I'll give a bit of a pitch for ASTA, which is the American Spice Trade Association. They do have a adulteration guidance document, and it sort of talks through the risk assessments of each of the areas, and what should be on a spec, what you should be looking for, history, all these elements that should be considered as part of any risk assessment when you're looking at buying a product, specifically in this case a herb and spice. And they have this decision tree written out. Now, this is available off the ASTA website. It's pre-sign-in, so it's available to anybody. And they also have an organic toolkit for the US organic market, again for herbs and spices, but that is behind the paywall. It is behind the membership wall, but this ASTA recommended decision tree is available if you go on the ASTA website to be able to pull it out. And again, I think it's very good because it can be used across industries, and it's specific to herbs and spices, but again, you can translate it into the industry that you're in. So the first steps is that many people down the supply chain or up the supply chain in sort of developed countries don't know where products come from. So we push products down and we try and get source process finished goods. We try to go back to the actual, not necessarily farm, but definitely the processor in origin and understanding into the farms. We're very strong at working, we're a co-op, so we're very strong at working with farming co-ops. So we usually communicate direct with farming co-ops and the processor so that we understand which co-ops the product's coming from, and there is a traceability back. Having strong specifications that have been approved by yourself and the supplier is key to this as well. Then there's no one saying, oh, you didn't put the botanical name on it. You know, there's multiple different types of oregano, there's multiple different types of turmeric. You put it down, you tell them what curcumin it's meant to be, you state on there it's got to be 100% turmeric. Just those small points and with 2 signatures on really create a difference and create a legally binding document. And then we get into what I do, the approved supplier program, which should include everything. It should include your food contact packaging materials, anything that's touching food. We have an approval process for. We have an approval process for all suppliers, but the approved process for food contact or food items or personal care items or personal care contact items is very, very strong. And then if you could use brokers as well as overseas suppliers. Verify the programs that people are using as well. If you're using a broker, just verify that they do have programs in place to be able to evaluate and risk assess products they're getting. Don't leave it all to them because it is your brand and it's your product you're selling if you're in a branded product. So that goes back to knowing your supplier's supplier. Anywhere where there's risk mitigation happening, as part of FSMA and FSVP, you should know where that risk mitigation is happening. If there's a pathogen reduction step happening somewhere, you should know where that's happening. You shouldn't just leave it to that the supplier you're buying it from. You should know where it's happening. What's the handling steps after that point? How is the pathogen or micro risk reduction occurring? Is it validated? All these pieces, because again, it comes to the product that you're selling, you're putting in a brand, you're making for another brand. In our business, in the herb spice industry, we try and work with suppliers who work with a whole leaf, a whole or a cut or sliced ginger or turmeric. The smaller the pieces get, the easier it is to be fraudulent on it, the easier it is to stretch out that material. And then we have risk assessments for everything. We have risk assessments per origin, per product, per type of product, not necessarily down to region types, but definitely down to specific botanicals. We use a couple technologies to track past history. We use a couple technologies to also track. We get a daily update from one particular technology that tells us all the global warnings and recalls and withdrawals that are happening on the products. The cost chain is very, very important. I gave the example earlier of a friend of mine buying the 2 pounds of turmeric. Buying a ground product for the same price as possibly the farmer's selling it for is an impossibility. It is not possible for a supplier to buy a product, clean it, process it, grind it, sterilize it, and ship it out, and it to be cheaper or the same price as the farmer. Something's happening in that supply chain. They may have made a good contract. They may not have paid the farmer a fair price, which is what we truly believe in, paying the farmer a fair price. But to understand that supply chain and cost chain is critical. And then to reduce the price, you could try and reduce the non-value supply chain nodes. The people in there that are just trading the products, try and get back. It goes back to that source origin process good. Try and get back to where they're actually processing it, so that we can that where it's coming from and you can control it for it is. And we focus on quality. We build lab capability at origin. We approve labs at origin. We share methods and we share watch outs. Asta's, again, back to Asta, they've got a very good methodology on their system, on their website. But we trust but verify. So we audit the incoming products coming in to the spec, to the agreed methods, and we do adulteration testing. Even on trusted suppliers, we do adulteration just to verify our risk assessments. It might be on a timely basis, even annually, but that's something that should be in place as well. Upcoming regulatory requirements, we share them with suppliers. We don't keep anything secret. We're very transparent with suppliers. We help them with FSMA and FSVP when that came out. It's complicated for somebody overseas to understand that, and we want them to know what's coming next. we also want them to know what we've seen are the vulnerabilities maybe in the same product from a different origin. So if something's coming, if turmeric is coming from India and turmeric is coming from Guatemala, it's only one. The internet's out there. There's only one thing that might change it. If it's being adulterated in India, they might think it's a good place to adulterate it in Guatemala as well. So that's being transparent and just communicating with suppliers and having that relationship, and then ensuring that two-way communication, that they shouldn't be afraid to come to you when they find something either. They want to come to you, they say they found XYZ, they found a wayward pesticide, somebody's using a pesticide, they should be not necessarily rewarded, but they that communication should be open and fair, that people don't fear coming up to say about failures and working through the problem. And then it's that scorecard, going back, telling them what you're going to score them against, telling them what the expectations are, and then sharing that scorecard and agreeing next steps and action steps to move forward and improve. So what we do differently, and we're about 80% organic, as I said earlier, and we sell teas as well. So we build a strategic partner, and we build a strategic sourcing model, and we're not just reliant on paperwork. We try and go there. I try to go to the suppliers. The purchasing team goes to the suppliers. We try in calls. We try and introduce the quality control team. We've built our own addendum that myself or my colleagues do when we go to these. We share with suppliers as well, which again, it comes back to transparency. This is what we're going to audit against. This is our expectations of what is needed or required in the supply chain. I apologize, the gardeners are here today. I can hear the leaf blower if it's coming across. And then for organic certificates, when we do go to origin, we do full traceabilities ourselves back to farm gate level. Then we check all the farmers, we check the volumes coming in, we check the dehydrated volumes coming in, and we make sure per acre to volume coming in from the farmer works out. For example, one time I went to China, did a traceability. I found that one farmer had double the volume coming off the same amount of land. Well, that's just not possible when you take all the farmers. They had pages and pages, and he really stood out to me. So we went back, we dug in. They actually didn't take his product that year, but it was something that they should be looking at to understand. And you should understand residue testing as well. I've got examples all over the world where certain suppliers will take molecules off residue testing, pesticide residue testing, and no one's checking a 400 or 500 molecule screen. So if one's missing, you're never going to know unless you're doing it against a company screen, or you're going to a lab that you know and that you've told the supplier that they need to get tested at. And then what we are moving towards more and more is again, trust but verify, having a COA, having it verified, getting the pathogen testing done in a third-party approved lab that's ISO certified, ensuring that the supplier understands the sampling agreements and sampling regulatory requirements. For example, in our industry, the FDA requires 375 or 750 grams taken with 30 samples and consolidated and then a sample taken. All these small things reduce the risk more and more. And I say we continue to audit products and we continue to audit factories, but I'm not sure when travel will come back online. So we're looking at technology to maybe help us in that. We're looking at new technology to help us in that we can see the factory through the screen, maybe through Google Glasses or something else. With supplier management, we're developing suppliers, and as I said, it's very important to have that two-way communication, be transparent. They shouldn't be afraid to come to you. It's a relationship. It's not a one-sided, if you get it wrong, we're not going to buy from you again. And suppliers should be aware of that. You should be training them, helping them, giving them information. They might be supplying to 5, 6, 7, 8 different countries. So ensuring that supplying into the US, they know the regulations, they know what they should be looking at, they know the minimum requirements. It is something that we can help them with. We've partnered with certification bodies and move suppliers up the value chain. So they used to be a raw material supplier, then we would be sterilizing and processing in our own factory, and we've developed them, we've helped them, we've financed them to get into the business of processing at their side, maybe getting a sterilizer, validating it, and we've helped those with consultation audits, as well as online audits, online consultation audits, and financial. We have a Well Earth program, which really helps solidify our position in the herb and spice industry to helping suppliers move forward. And if they have a failure, we go back, we root cause it out, we make sure it doesn't happen again. We're not just discarding that supplier. We see a real value in those suppliers. We've written a supplier exploitation manual that we've attached to the PO with a link to the PO. So that's out there as well for people to look at. And we have a vulnerability assessment, which we look at a supplier product origin basis as well. Frontier are very good at understanding economies. So we go back to this pricing, like make sure the farmer gets the farm price and make, that the value chain is correct through it. You're not buying a ground product for less than the farm gate price, and you're making sure the farmer's getting, I'm not gonna say living wage because that has a lot of political connotations, but has a fair price for that product. And we try and find out like-minded suppliers, whether they're other co-ops which we believe in doing business, or farming groups that might not quite be co-ops yet. And we have, again, I can't say so much about transparency in this two-way and Frontier's co-op ways of doing business. Not rewarding mistakes, but root causing them, and everyone's going to make a mistake. And we're trying to move back more and more to farmers groups with building communities, giving advantages through our Well Earth program to farming groups, so there's a benefit to them, not only in selling the product as well as guaranteeing. We sometimes actually guarantee the volume, whether we know our sales are going to take it or not, and then back to this strong two-way communication. And I touched a bit on the Well Earth program that we manage. We have one manager who's the Sustainability Ethical Sourcing program. He's a dedicated manager for that program, and this helps a lot because we focus on those 5 aspects, but we've helped everything from helping farmer groups, buying seeds, doing studies on fields to whether we should harvest it every 2 years or annually. We've bought equipment. Presently we're going through helping a supplier move up this value chain to putting a sterilizer in, changing their entire process round so they've got a clean and a dirty area, making sure the clean area after sterilization has got HEPA filtered, it's positive pressure, and they're managing it with separate employees with a separate employee entrance. So it's these things that really help these suppliers, so more money goes back to the supplier and back to origin versus a third party doing it. In other origins, we've helped push some of the manual sorting back to farm gate level, so the farmers not only harvest it but might do some manual sorting, thereby pushing that profit and that money back to the farm gate level, so it benefits the farmer. And we've also brought in consultants to help in origin at our cost, who are in country all the time, and they help with food safety and quality, and they're obviously easier to get to the factory than I am from over here, and I manage those relationships as well. And we're building this, we're building a digital database of our supplier development, certifications, risk assessing, and trying to put a number around it to say who could benefit more from this. And the Well Earth funds are not unlimited. There is a limit to it, so there is a budget and there is something that we need to, but it's a real benefit because it goes back to the farmer and really helps at origin to help push processes back there. I talked a bit about organic. It does take 3 years, yet some suppliers we have found offer immediately. Where they get in that product, we're not sure. Some suppliers suddenly are offering organic range of items, unless they're taking from other organic groups, which maybe other suppliers have created and sort of grown up, and they've just been, I'm going to say, harvested those ones with a higher price. We're not sure where it is, but that's a very difficult thing with organics because it does take that 3 years and you can't just get it the next crop cycle. Frontier's other piece is that we might buy a supplier a piece of equipment, we might help them develop, we might help them add value to their product, but we're not saying they should sell it all to us. We help that supplier. We help to give them more profit that then goes back to their farming groups, and sort of it's just that flow of capital back into the agricultural community that we hope for, and we're not dedicated to say that well, this piece of equipment can only be used for our product. No, this is a piece of equipment. It's from our Well Earth project. You can build your business on this. And we build the environment of trust. Again, I just keep pushing this transparent, internal and external, and solid chains of custody. And just remember that, you know, organic is never going to cost the same or be cheaper than conventional product. It takes more time, it takes more effort, it takes 3 years to get there. I know some companies are offering organic and conventional at the same price. Some companies are pushing to buy organic and conventional at the same price, which we don't believe is going to occur. So looking into the future, what could we see? We can see the retail sector is going to continue with this huge lift in business. I know since I put this together, the vaccines have come out being pretty positive about that with a 90% plus. But at the moment, I think through Thanksgiving and at least through Thanksgiving and Christmas into the new year, I think retail will still see this huge lift in business. So shelves will continue to be stressed. The botanical immunity of products, usually in the winter, elderberries become very popular because they help alleviate flu, they help your immune system. So we think the natural products, botanical products are going to build immunity. They're not going to, I'm not saying they're going to solve COVID, I'm just saying that they help with immunity, and they could grow as well. And people are going to start stockpiling for products and packaging, understanding that this could happen, this sort of pandemic could happen again. How are we going to solve it? You know, vaccine, it might be easy for developed countries. How are we going to get it out into farming communities in the middle of Afghanistan? How are we going to get it out into farming communities in the middle of China? Crops grow all over these places. So having that distribution network is going to be critical, and it's going to take a long time. There are other effects happening. It might not be a pandemic this time. It might be something else. It might be one of the climate change. It might be flooding. It might be seawater. It might be, you know, fires. All this they're going to continue. So there's going to be this continued look. And you know, there are positive things in the future as well, but there's a number of negatives as well. And technology is going to become more important in supply chain. I talked about blockchain and traceability and scanning a QR code and going back to the farmer. That's all moving along at breakneck speed. You know, 10 years ago, who'd have thought that a small phone in your pocket could do everything your computer could do? So who knows where that's going to do? But the track and trace piece and the audit piece will hopefully become more advanced, maybe use more technology. Google Glass is a good piece of equipment that as I said, we're trying to use moving forward for our audits that we can't be there. And I just wanted to finish on this because this was said at it wasn't this year's, but it's a couple of years ago, World Economic Forum, that if you outsource your value chain, you cannot outsource your responsibilities. You know, so that's a really good point, in that if you're going to a broker or you're going to a trader or you're just going to a supplier and saying, I just want this product, and you don't understand where it's coming from, something's going to happen that you're not aware of. If you're not aware of the risks, if you're not aware of the concerns, if you're not aware of that risk mitigation step, where that's happening or if it's happening. So that's something that you need to think about, or your quality team needs to think about and evaluate. And we come to the end. Bang on time, I think.
Yeah, right on time there, Greg. Thank you so much for all of that great information. And for everyone, I know those slides are all very information dense. As I mentioned at the beginning, the slides for this presentation as well as the recording will be available from the PJRFSI website. That's usually within 24 to 48 hours after we wrap up the broadcast here. Just really quick before we get into the Q&A, get those questions in. I'm sure there's plenty of information to digest and consider, and I hope there's some good questions out there. We do have a couple of upcoming webinars. We're also planning webinars for Q1 of next year already. Believe it or not, the end of the year is just around the corner. If you have any suggestions or topics of future webinars you'd like to see, we do encourage you all to let us know. You can email those over to pjrfsi@pjrfsi.com. But we do have coming up, I guess it's technically 2 weeks, yes. December 8th, we have a webinar with Jackie Southey of FSSC North America regarding protecting the food supply chain, which will be great. And then there's also the closing session of the GRMA Summit coming up soon. So let's go ahead. Here's all the contact info for both Greg and for Paul and PJRFSI itself. So if you have any questions that maybe you don't want to ask them live on the air, feel free to send those over to either Greg or us over at PJRFSI, and we will get those questions to the people who can answer them for you. So really quick, let me open the question panel because I did see one come in. Let's see. All right, Greg, if you remember the second polling question off the top of your head, Brenda had a question regarding that. Brenda says, poll number 2 option should follow 21 CFR 117 subpart G. Third-party GFSI is not required, however, most helpful. Is this not correct?
Oh, I don't know my regulations off the top of my head. I apologize, Brenda. But no, I mean, GFSI is not a requirement, and I believe the FDA is looking at third-party audits. I mean, obviously GFSI wants to get top of that list for that, but no, it's not a requirement. But I believe it is it's a good practice if you've got a team that can go out and audit yourselves against your industry. I do think it is a more valuable audit. But obviously, we have 189 suppliers with various products. It's very difficult to get out to each one, and I think the GFSI, you know, it covers a number of basics that need to get covered. I hope that answers the question.
Yep, we're getting a thank you from Brenda there. Brenda, thank you so much for your question. Let's see, what else do we have? We have a question here from Rupert. Can you comment on what you think the next adulteration or large scandal might be in the herb and spice industry?
Oh, that's a great question, because, you know, as I said in the presentation, that the people doing fraud are getting more and more technical. So whether it's vanillin made from nothing to do with vanilla and mixing it in, a synthetic turmeric. I read an article yesterday about, posted on my LinkedIn page about synthetic turmeric, curcumin in turmeric. So it's a real difficult. I think one of the I do think the organic increase across the board, not necessarily just in the herb and spice chain, across the board, I think organics is probably going to have another challenge going forward with more people buying organics. And that you know, that was I can't remember what the product was. It wasn't flaxseed. It was a seed coming across from Europe, and the whole ship turned organic in transit as it arrived into the US, and then got distributed as, yeah, and it got distributed. I think they said the seller made $9 million or something. I mean, that's what that's the money you're talking about at the moment, which is incredible amounts. And it's not a food safety issue. It's just a certification issue. And making that much money, you know, does the punishment fit the crime? And I'm going to be honest, $9 million is a lot of money.
That it is. All right, we've got a question here from Barbara. Oh, Barbara is wondering, is there any difference in what to look for in herbs, spices, and botanicals for the supplement industry versus the food industry?
Oh, another great question. So I've done some work with UMPA, and with I know Michael McGuffin from APA as well. And I think it's, if you're thinking about the botanicals that we see as dietary supplements, so I do think there's very, very similar concerns there. And I think in the press you've probably seen elderberries have been highly adulterated. Was that towards, I think it was towards the beginning of the year, where elderberries have become the product of the moment, and there's a lot of adulteration going into elderberries. Now, we only buy whole elderberries, which is an easy thing to look at. But once you get into those botanicals and supplements where it goes into an extract, goes into a powder, maybe it becomes a part of you're putting part of an extract, and you can make the synthetic of that, I think that it becomes even more complicated. So in the herb and spice industry, the smaller it gets into ground product, the higher risk and the less you can view adulteration. I think in the botanical industry, the more it gets extracted, the more it gets away from the original raw material, the harder it's going to be to detect. But I definitely think it's out there as well.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
That's a long-winded answer. I'm sorry.
A long-winded answer for a very complicated question, I think. Let's see, we've got a question here from Andrew. Andrew's question, what do you think is the biggest challenge for smallholder farms in the industry?
I think the biggest challenge is that some of these smallholders, you know, in our business, you're talking about smallholders, less than half an acre, subsistence farmers that are growing items to sort of go up to be collected by a collector, to be collected by a collector, to be processed. Many of these farmers don't necessarily know where their product is going to be sold. They don't know what regulations are. They're then fighting with pesticide people. There's fake pesticides out there from various countries. You know, it's really difficult for them. So there's you got to be aware of that, but you still got to meet your in-country regulation.
All right, great. We've got a question, and I apologize if I mispronounce this name. It's not my strongest point. Araminta asks, is there any one place to see, this is asking if there's a repository of alerts or of fraud globally in the industry?
So
like
I'm gonna give a shout out. It's hard to get everything together. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm gonna give a shout out to Horizon Scan. We use a company called Horizon Scan, and they put all the alerts into their system, and I get a daily update from it. It is a paid for service, but I think it's really, really good. And there are a couple of other services offer that service as well, but it's all paid for services. But Horizon Scan's the one we use, and it's pretty impressive.
All right, thank you so much there. It looks like that was the last question we had submitted. So if there's any other questions that didn't get answered while we were live, as I said before, you can go ahead and drop those questions to either of the email addresses on the screen, or if you have more general questions about PJRFSI, PJRFSI at PJRFSI. We'd love to take any suggestions for future webinar topics. If there's anything in the industry that you're curious about, go ahead and suggest away. And I guess I'll see, Greg, do you have any parting words of wisdom for the audience today?
Stay safe. Enjoy Thanksgiving, right? Because it's Thanksgiving week up in the US, so enjoy that.
Paul, anything from you?
That's the same. I agree with Greg, and thanks again, Greg, for your time. Amy, as always, a pleasure.
All right, thank you all so much for joining us. As Greg said, stay safe, stay healthy, and we hope to see you all in the next webinar. Have a great day and a happy Thanksgiving week.
Thank you. Bye.